The neon lights of the rusty lantern bar flickered in the rain, casting a tired glow over the cracked asphalt of the parking lot. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke. Country music hummed from a jukebox, and the bitter scent of spilled whiskey clung to every corner. The regulars leaned into their beers, heads bowed, while strangers sat scattered across wooden booths. It was the kind of place where secrets were nursed in silence and fights erupted with little warning. At a dim table near the back, a man in his early 40s sat alone, his weathered hands wrapped around a chipped glass of water. No liquor, just water. His name was Daniel Hayes. A former Army Ranger, single father, and survivor of battles that had carved scars both visible and hidden. His shoulders bore the weight of years of discipline. His posture straight, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion. He wasn't there to drink or mingle, he was there because quiet places had become his refuge. But peace never seemed to last long for Daniel. The door burst open, rain blowing in with the gust. 2 young women stepped inside, shaking off the storm. Identical. Long chestnut hair pulled back, sharp eyes that scanned the room with practiced awareness. They looked too polished for the bar, yet too hardened to be nervy. The twins, Sophia and Claire, walked with the kind of confidence that drew stares without asking for them. Daniel's gaze flicked up when they entered. His instincts sharpened immediately, not because of attraction but because years of combat had trained him to read people. These women were alert, calculating. They weren't here for fun. The bartender, a heavy, set man with a permanent frown, eyed them with irritation. "ID," he muttered. They slid their cards across the counter without hesitation. He looked them over, grunted, and handed them back. But not everyone was satisfied. At a table in the corner, 2 uniformed cops had been nursing their beers. Their badges caught the dim light. But it wasn't the badges that made Daniel stiffen. It was the way they looked at the twins. Not with casual curiosity, but with something darker. One of the officers, tall with a shaved head, leaned back in his chair. Well. Look at what wandered in," he said loudly, nudging his partner. Barbie dolls out of their depth. The twins ignored him, settling at a booth near the jukebox. But Daniel's ears picked up every word, every shift in tone. The second cop, a burly man with a thick mustache, smirked. "Pretty faces like that shouldn't be alone in a place like this. Dangerous neighborhood." The taller cop pushed himself up, swaggering toward the twins. "Hey, ladies, you lost." Sophia lifted her eyes, cool and measured. "We're fine. Thank you." But he didn't move away. Instead, he leaned closer, one hand on the table. "You sure? 'Cause I'd hate to see something happen to you." The Claire's jaw tightened, though her voice remained steady. "We said we're fine." Daniel's hand clenched around his glass. Every instinct screamed to stay out of it. He had learned the hard way what happened when you picked fights that weren't yours. But something about the menace in that cop's voice, the way his partner watched with a smirk, made his blood run hot. The bar had grown quieter, all eyes darting between the twins and the officer towering over them. The bartender looked away, choosing silence. Then the tall cop reached out, brushing Sophia's shoulder. Before he could blink, a voice cut through the room like a blade. "That's enough." Every head turned. Daniel had risen from his seat, eyes locked on the officer. His presence commanded attention. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady, like a storm building just beneath the surface. The cop turned, sneering. "Excuse me." Daniel stepped closer, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. "They told you they're fine. You heard them." The mustached officer rose from his chair, muscles tensing. "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" Daniel's tone didn't waver. "Someone telling you to back off." The bar buzzed with sudden tension, electricity sparking in the silence. The twins watched, expressions unreadable, though something flickered in their eyes. Surprise, maybe even curiosity. The tall cop smirked, but his jaw tightened. "You don't tell me what to do, old man. I'm the law here." Daniel's voice dropped lower, steady as a sniper's aim. "No. Right now you're just a bully hiding behind a badge." A chair creaked as someone shifted nervously. The bartender muttered, "Hey, let's not." But his words trailed off. The tall cop shoved a finger into Daniel's chest. "You better walk away before I." Daniel's hand shot up, gripping the officer's wrist with lightning speed. The cop froze, shocked by the strength in that grip. Daniel leaned in, his voice calm but deadly serious. "Don't finish that sentence." The bar held its breath. The mustached cop hovered, unsure whether to intervene. The twins exchanged a glance, sharp, silent communication. And then, just as quickly, Daniel released the officer's wrist and stepped back. Leave them alone. That's your last warning. The tall cop scowled, rubbing his wrist. For a moment, it looked like fists would fly. But something in Daniel's eyes made him hesitate. The kind of look only a man who had stared death in the face could carry. He spat on the floor, muttering, "Not worth it." He shoved past Daniel, dragging his partner toward the door. The room exhaled as the door slammed shut. Daniel turned, ready to walk back to his table. But before he could, Sophia spoke softly. "You didn't have to do that." Daniel paused, glancing at her. "Yeah, I did." For the first time, a hint of a smile ghosted across Claire's lips. "Interesting," she murmured under her breath. Daniel returned to his table, trying to push away the adrenaline. But as he sat, he caught the twins watching him, their eyes sharp and calculating. He didn't know it yet, but the night had only just begun. And nothing about those two women was what it seemed. The rain had grown heavier outside, pelting against the windows of the rusty lantern. But inside the bar, the tension hadn't fully dissolved. The patrons whispered among themselves, glancing from Daniel to the twins, as if they had just witnessed something they weren't supposed to see. Daniel shifted in his seat, trying to steady his breathing. Confrontation always left an echo inside him. The years in uniform, the firefights in deserts and forests. Every act of aggression replayed in his head long after the dust settled. Tonight was no different. He told himself it was over, that the cops had left. But the quiet voice deep inside reminded him trouble doesn't walk out the door that easily. Sophia and Claire leaned close in their booth, speaking in hushed tones. Daniel caught fragments: calm, clipped words. Strategic. It wasn't the conversation of two women shaken by harassment. No, their voices carried precision. He tried to look away, but his instincts wouldn't let him. Something about them demanded attention. Minutes passed before Sophia slid out of the booth and approached his table. Her presence was poised, her gaze direct. "Mind if I sit?" Daniel gestured with a shrug. "Free country." She slipped into the chair across from him, folding her hands neatly. Up close, he could see the subtle lines of discipline in her posture, the way her eyes never stopped scanning, even when fixed on him. "You've been in the service," she said quietly, not asking but stating. Daniel's jaw tightened. "What makes you say that?" "Your stance. The way you intervened. You don't flinch, you don't posture. You assess." Her lips curved into the faintest smirk. "Am I wrong?" He didn't answer. Years of habit kept him guarded. Claire joined them, sliding in beside her sister. She studied Daniel just as intently, though her approach was sharper, like a blade testing for weakness. "You shouldn't have interfered," she said bluntly. "Those men won't let it go." Daniel leaned back in his chair, voice steady. "Yeah, I figured. But I wasn't about to sit by and watch them push their weight around." The Claire tilted her head, scrutinizing him. "That was reckless." Sophia interjected softly, her tone warmer. "Reckless, but noble." Daniel let out a dry chuckle. "Funny thing about noble, it tends to get you killed." The sisters exchanged a glance. A silent conversation passed between them again, and Daniel noticed it. He frowned. "You two always talk like that, with your eyes." Claire smirked faintly. "You pick up on a lot. Old habit." Sophia leaned forward. "What's your name?" "Daniel Hayes." Something flickered across their faces at the name. Something quick, unreadable. Daniel caught it, though they masked it quickly. "And you too?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just travelers," Claire said smoothly. Too smoothly. Sophia's lips pressed into a small, polite smile. "Sophia. And this is Claire." Daniel nodded, but suspicion lingered. Travelers didn't carry themselves like soldiers. Travelers didn't study every exit in a bar. Travelers didn't seem completely unfazed after standing up to two aggressive cops. Before he could press further, the front door creaked open again. Daniel's muscles tensed. The same two officers stepped back inside, this time with harder expressions, and a third man in plain clothes trailing behind them. His eyes were cold, calculating, his presence heavier than theirs. The bar fell silent once more. The tall officer's voice carried, sharp and bitter. "Thought you could embarrass me in front of everyone, huh?" His partner cracked his knuckles, while the man in plain clothes scanned the room like a predator. Daniel stood, instinct kicking in, placing himself between the cops and the twins without even thinking. "You had your chance. Leave it." The plain-clothed man stepped forward, smirking. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But do you know who you're dealing with?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Doesn't matter." The man's smirk widened. Oh, it matters. Because I'm internal affairs. Which means when a washed-up vet like you decides to mouth off to my boys, I can make your life very complicated. Whispers rippled through the bar. Internal affairs. Even the bartender paled. Daniel didn't flinch. Then maybe you should start by teaching your boys some restraint. The tall cop's face flushed red. That's it. He lunged, hand reaching for Daniel's shirt. But before he could make contact, the sound of metal clicking cut through the air. Everyone froze. Sophia stood now, her hand steady, a badge flashing in her palm. Federal Bureau of Investigation. She announced, her voice clear and commanding. Claire rose beside her, mirroring the gesture. Another badge. Another unmistakable glare of authority. The bar erupted in gasps. The officers froze stunned. Even Daniel blinked, struggling to process what he was seeing. The twins, those same young women he thought he was protecting, were FBI agents. Sophia's voice sliced through the silence. Step away. Now, the tall cop faltered, his bravado crumbling. The mustached officer looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Even the internal affairs man's smirk wavered. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. The realization hit him hard. He hadn't been shielding helpless strangers. He'd been standing between two wolves and a pack of other wolves. But why were FBI agents in a bar like this? Why were they keeping their covers so tight until now? The question swirled. But there was no time for answers. The room was on a knife's edge, danger thick in the air. And Daniel knew one thing for certain. His night had just taken a turn he never could have imagined. The rusty lantern's walls seemed to shrink as the revelation hung heavy in the air. The hum of the jukebox stopped, a glass clinked nervously in the bartender's hands. And everyone in the room knew they were now standing in the middle of something far bigger than a bar scuffle. Daniel's eyes shifted between the sisters and the officers. His heartbeat thundered in his chest, not out of fear, but from the sudden shift in reality. He had stepped in thinking he was protecting two women from abuse. Now, he realized he had thrown himself into the middle of a war he didn't understand. Sophia's voice cut like steel. Sergeant Miller, Officer Brandt, you're interfering with an ongoing federal investigation. The tall cop, Miller, swallowed hard, his earlier bravado gone. What the hell are you talking about? Claire pulled a folded document from her jacket, the kind of paper that carried weight. Sealed orders. You want to test us? Go ahead, but you'll regret it. The man from Internal Affairs, however, wasn't rattled. His smirk crept back, calm and poisonous. Impressive, I'll admit, I didn't expect this. He stepped forward, eyeing the badges. But I don't scare easy. You might flash those shiny shields around, but I know who pulls the strings in this city. And it isn't the Bureau. Daniel's gut twisted. He had seen that kind of arrogance before, overseas. Men who believed they were untouchable, who acted with impunity because corruption shielded them. He recognized it instantly. Sophia didn't blink. Then you also know obstruction of federal law carries consequences. The plainclothes agent's smile thinned, but he didn't back down. Careful. You two are far from your headquarters. And accidents they happen. A chill passed through the bar. The patrons shrank deeper into their booths, not daring to move. The bartender ducked behind the counter, muttering a prayer under his breath. Daniel's hand twitched near the edge of the table. He had no badge, no authority here. But every muscle in his body screamed to prepare. Because he knew, without a shadow of doubt, this wasn't over. The IA man finally raised his hands in mock surrender. Fine. Have it your way, for now. He glanced at Miller and Brandt. Let's go. We'll see how long their little game lasts. The three men left, the door slamming behind them, rattling the glass. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then Daniel turned to the sisters, his voice low and sharp. What the hell was that? Sophia met his gaze without flinching. Classified. That's not good enough. Daniel shot back. I just put myself in the crosshairs for you. You think you can brush it off with classified? I need answers. Claire's expression hardened. You don't need to know anything. You did your part. Walk away. Daniel's jaw clenched, anger mixing with frustration. Walk away. Those men aren't going to forget me. You've put me in their line of fire whether I wanted it or not. Sophia's eyes softened, though her tone remained measured. We didn't ask for your help. But we appreciate it. And you're right. You're involved now. Daniel leaned closer, his voice dropping. Then tell me what I'm involved in. The sisters exchanged another silent look, their communication almost eerie in its precision. Finally, Claire sighed. We can't give you everything. But here's what you need to understand: those cops you stood up to. They're not just dirty. They're part of something bigger. Something rotting this city from the inside. Sophia added quietly, and we're here to root it out. Carefully, quietly. Until tonight. Daniel exhaled slowly, his mind racing. He had suspected corruption before. Anyone who lived in this town could smell it in the air. But hearing it from the bureau confirmed the danger. Still, questions burned inside him. So why a dive bar like this? Why expose yourselves now? Claire's lips pressed into a thin line. Because sometimes the best way to flush out snakes is to let them think they're hunting you. Daniel absorbed her words, a cold realization settling in. The harassment hadn't just been random abuse of power. It had been bait. You were testing them, he muttered. Sophia nodded faintly. And you walked into the middle of it. Daniel ran a hand over his face, torn between anger and reluctant respect. Unbelievable. But before another word could be spoken, the distant wail of sirens pierced the night. Louder, closer, until the red and blue glow flashed through the rain-smeared windows. The twins stiffened instantly. Claire's voice was sharp. We've been burned. Sophia grabbed Daniel's arm. We need to move. Now. Daniel blinked. What are you talking about? They're not coming for us alone anymore. Sophia said, urgency threading her voice. You're a witness, that makes you a target too. The sirens grew deafening. Car doors slammed outside. Heavy boots splashed through puddles. The bar patrons scrambled to the far end of the room, whispering in fear. The bartender muttered, not my business, not my business, and ducked further down. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to run. But another instinct, the one that had made him stand up in the first place, kept him rooted to the twins' side. He couldn't abandon them now. Claire pulled a small pistol from her jacket, checking the chamber with smooth efficiency. Sophia mirrored her, both women suddenly every inch the agents they truly were. Daniel stared at them. Then at the door where shadows moved against the glass. You two better hope I'm as crazy as I look, he muttered. And then the front door burst open, flooding the rusty lantern with flashing lights and armed figures. The storm outside had followed them in. The rusty lantern's door slammed open with the force of a battering ram. Rain poured in behind a wave of armed men, their uniforms dark, their faces grim. The flashing red and blue lights from outside cut through the haze of smoke and spilled beer, painting the bar in streaks of chaos. Daniel's instincts kicked in before his brain had time to catch up. He shoved a table sideways, toppling it onto the floor in front of the twins, creating a makeshift barricade. The crash made patrons scream and scatter into corners, their voices drowned out by the shouts of the officers storming in. Federal agents. Claire barked. Her badge raised high, voice sharp enough to pierce the noise. Stand down. But the men didn't stop. They fanned out like wolves circling prey, weapons drawn, eyes cold and unyielding. Sophia's jaw clenched. They're not here to arrest anyone, she said under her breath. They're here to clean house. Daniel's gut sank. He'd seen this before. Military sweeps where orders were simple: eliminate threats, no witnesses. He crouched low, shielding the sisters with his body as the first officer stepped forward. This is a restricted operation, the man growled, ignoring the badges. Drop your weapons and surrender. Claire's eyes narrowed. Under whose authority? The officer smirked. Authority you don't question if you want to live. The standoff thickened. A powder keg waiting for the smallest spark. Daniel could feel the fear rolling off the bar's patrons, their wide eyes darting between the sisters, Daniel, and the armed men ready to fire at any second. His voice cut through the chaos, steady and deliberate. Think carefully. You pull that trigger, there's no turning back. You'll answer for it. The lead officer sneered. Not if there's no one left to answer to. Then the first shot rang out. Glass shattered as a bullet tore through the bottles behind the bar. The patrons screamed, diving for cover. The bartender hit the floor, arms over his head. Daniel didn't think, he acted. In one swift move, he grabbed Claire's arm and dragged her down behind the barricade. Sophia fired back, controlled and precise, her round shattering the overhead light and plunging the bar into a chaotic semi-darkness. Move! Daniel shouted, shoving an overturned chair aside. He led them crawling across the sticky floor, bullets tearing splinters out of the wood around them. His blood pumped like fire in his veins, each decision razor sharp, every second counting. Back door. Claire hissed, pointing toward a narrow hallway leading into the rear. Daniel nodded, but he knew it wouldn't be that simple. They'll expect it. Another volley of gunfire exploded across the room. Bottles bursting, glass raining down like jagged shards of ice. Daniel grabbed a broken pool cue from the floor and hurled it across the room. It clattered loudly, drawing fire away from their path for just a second. Go, now. The three darted toward the hallway, hearts pounding. Their boots splashed through puddles of spilled liquor and rainwater as they ducked into the back corridor. The sirens outside still wailed, echoing in the narrow space. Daniel pressed his back to the wall, peeking around the corner. Flashlights cut through the gloom, the armed men sweeping closer. "We don't have long," he muttered. Claire checked her pistol, her tone cold and professional. "We'll buy time." But Daniel shook his head. "No. You'll get cut down if you try to fight your way out. These men aren't here to arrest you. They're here to bury you. And me, apparently." Sophia's eyes locked onto his, calm but urgent. "Then what do you suggest?" Daniel exhaled, mind racing. "Diversion. You two slip out the side while I hold their attention." Claire's face hardened instantly. "Absolutely not. You'll be killed." Daniel gave a humorless smile. "Wouldn't be the first time I've played bait." Sophia reached out, gripping his wrist. Her voice softened, just for a second. "You've got kids, don't you?" The question hit him like a punch to the chest. His throat tightened, his mind flashing to the image of his twin daughters. Laughing in their school uniforms, hugging him before bed, his anchor in a world that never stopped trying to drag him under. "Yes," he said quietly. "Two girls." Sophia's grip tightened. "Then don't throw your life away. Not tonight." The echo of boots thundered closer. The decision had to be made now. Daniel swallowed hard, the weight of fatherhood pressing against the instincts of a soldier. "Fine, we move together. But you listen to me. We don't stop running until we're clear." The twins nodded. Daniel led the way, pushing through the back door and into the storm. Rain drenched them instantly, the cold sting mixing with the adrenaline burning in their veins. Behind them, shouts erupted, the officers giving chase. The alley stretched ahead, narrow, slick with water, dumpsters looming like shadows. Daniel sprinted, the twins close behind, their breath sharp in the night. Bullets sparked against brick walls, ricocheting dangerously close. They rounded a corner, Daniel yanking them into another side street just as headlights flared. A black SUV screeched into view, blocking their path. Doors flew open. More men poured out, weapons ready. Daniel skidded to a halt, his body instinctively stepping in front of the sisters. His voice was low, grim. "We're boxed in." Claire raised her pistol, face set like stone. "Then we fight." Sophia's eyes darted around, calculating. "No, we survive." Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears. He had been in ambushes before, cut off with no way out. But this was different. He wasn't fighting for a mission or a flag. He was fighting for strangers. Strangers who carried secrets deeper than anything he'd expected to stumble into. And the only way out was through the fire. Rain hammered against the black SUV's hood, streaking the windshield in silver lines. The men who stepped out weren't regular cops. Their movements were too controlled, too rehearsed. They wore tactical gear under their jackets, and their weapons gleamed in the flashing light. Daniel recognized it instantly. This wasn't law enforcement. This was an execution squad dressed in badges. He raised his arms slowly, trying to buy time. "You boys sure about this?" FBI agents, in the middle of a city street. That's the kind of thing that doesn't stay quiet. The leader stepped forward, a scar cutting across his cheek. His voice was gravel, calm and merciless. "Quiet is our specialty. Nobody in this part of town cares what happens after dark." He glanced at the sisters. "Hand over the files." Claire's eyes narrowed. "What files?" Scarface smirked. "Don't play dumb. We know you've got them. Evidence that wasn't supposed to see daylight." He tilted his head. "Give it to us, and maybe we'll make it quick." Sophia and Claire exchanged another silent look. Daniel caught it again, the weight of something bigger, something dangerous. His gut twisted. This wasn't just about corruption. The sisters were carrying proof. Proof someone powerful wanted buried. Daniel lowered his arms just enough to flex his fists. "They don't have what you're looking for." Scarface turned his gaze on him, amused. "And you are?" Daniel's voice was steady. "The wrong man to corner." The squad moved closer, weapons raised. Time slowed, every drop of rain a drumbeat in Daniel's ears. He had no gun, no body armor, just his training and sheer will. But he wasn't alone. The sisters moved like predators, poised, every muscle coiled. Then chaos exploded. Claire fired first, her pistol cracking in the storm. One man dropped, his weapon clattering on the pavement. Daniel lunged, tackling another into the SUV, disarming him with brutal efficiency. A punch, a twist, and the man crumpled. Sophia ducked low, firing controlled shots, each one measured. The rain hissed against hot metal, sparks flying as bullets struck concrete. Daniel felt the surge of combat take over. The world narrowing into instinct, every sound sharper. Every motion faster. He fought like a man who had sworn never to fight again, yet found himself unable to stop. His daughters' faces flashed in his mind, but so did the reality. If he didn't win here, they'd lose him forever. Scarface barked orders, his men pressing harder. One of them swung a rifle toward Sophia. Daniel saw it, rage igniting. He grabbed a loose brick from the alley wall and hurled it with deadly precision. The rifle cracked sideways as the man dropped. But there were too many. For every one they dropped, another surged forward. "We're pinned," Claire shouted, crouching behind a dumpster, reloading with practiced speed. Sophia fired back, 2 back rounds, sweat and rain mixing on her brow. They want the evidence too badly to stop. Daniel ducked beside them, his chest heaving. "Then give me a plan, because standing here gets us killed." Claire's jaw clenched. "The files. They're not with us. They're stashed. If we can get clear of this block, we have a safe house." Daniel barked a bitter laugh. "Safe house? You call this safe?" Sophia met his eyes, her voice firm. "It's the only chance we've got." Scarface stepped forward, rain dripping from his jacket, his pistol raised. "Last chance. Hand them over." Daniel straightened slowly, drawing their focus. His voice was steady, defiant. "You want them? You'll have to go through me." Scarface's smirk deepened. "Gladly." The gun leveled at Daniel's chest. For a split second, he braced himself for the impact. But before the shot fired, Sophia's bullet tore through the night. Scarface staggered back, his pistol clattering to the ground as blood stained his jacket. The squad faltered, leaderless. Claire seized the moment. "Move." Daniel grabbed a fallen rifle, adrenaline surging, and laid down covering fire as the 3 of them bolted down the alley. Rain splashed up their legs, boots pounding against the pavement. The night was alive with chaos, shouts, sirens, the echo of gunfire bouncing off the walls. They cut left, ducking through a narrow passage between crumbling buildings. Daniel's lungs burned, but he pushed on, forcing his body to obey. The sisters were fast, their training evident, but he stayed right on their heels. Finally, they burst into a quiet street, the chaos fading behind them. They paused only for a second, bent over and gasping, their breaths sharp in the rain. Daniel leaned against a wall, rifle still in hand, chest heaving. "You two are gonna explain everything. Right now." The Claire wiped water from her face, her eyes cold. "No time." Daniel growled. "Make time. I just risked my life, again, for something I don't understand. My daughters are at home waiting for me. And if I'm not there tomorrow, someone needs to tell me why." Sophia stepped forward, her voice calm, but weighted with truth. "Daniel, we're not just chasing dirty cops. We're chasing something much bigger. A network. Trafficking, drugs, money, and politics. Evidence that could blow the lid off this entire state." Daniel's stomach dropped. "And you've got proof?" Claire nodded grimly. "Proof enough to make us walking targets." The pieces clicked together in Daniel's head, each one heavier than the last. No wonder they were hunted. No wonder those men wanted the evidence buried. This wasn't a case. It was a war. And somehow, he was now part of it. Sophia placed a hand on his arm, her voice steady. "You don't have to stay with us. We can take it from here." Daniel looked at her, then at Claire, then down at the rifle still clutched in his hands. He thought of his daughters, safe at home, blissfully unaware of the storm swallowing their father. He could walk away. He should walk away. But he knew himself too well. Once you stepped into the fire, you didn't back out. Not when the fight mattered. Daniel straightened, his eyes blazing with resolve. "You're wrong. I do have to stay. Because if men like that are allowed to win, my girls grow up in a world I won't recognize." The sisters exchanged a long, silent look. And for the first time, Claire's cold exterior cracked just slightly, replaced by something that almost resembled respect. "Then welcome to the war," she said. The rain finally eased into a mist, but the city felt no less dangerous. Daniel, Sophia, and Claire slipped through back streets, their clothes soaked, their bodies battered, yet their determination sharper than ever. The rifle in Daniel's hands felt heavy, not because of its weight, but because of what it symbolized. He had stepped fully into a war that wasn't his. And now there was no going back. They reached the edge of an industrial district, where warehouses loomed like silent giants. Claire led the way to one in particular, its windows blacked out, its entrance tucked behind a rusted fence. She punched a code into a concealed keypad, and the metal door clicked open. Inside, the space was dim but dry. Stacks of crates and old machinery lined the walls. A single bulb swung overhead, casting shadows that seemed to move with them. "This is the safe house," Daniel muttered, scanning the room. Claire locked the door behind them. "Safe enough." Sophia moved quickly to a steel case in the corner. She opened it, revealing a laptop, hard drives, and a set of folders bound tight. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "That's it. The proof." Claire's voice was low, almost reverent. "Everything we've gathered for months. Transactions, recordings, names. Judges, politicians, cops, it's all here." Daniel whistled under his breath. "No wonder they want you dead." Sophia tapped a few keys, the screen lighting up with documents and videos. Grainy footage showed officers exchanging envelopes in alleyways, men in suits shaking hands with known traffickers, warehouses filled with crates marked as supplies. Daniel's stomach turned. It wasn't just corruption. It was rot spreading through the city's core. "You release this," Daniel said, his voice heavy, "and the whole house of cards comes down." Claire nodded. "Which is why they'll do anything to stop us." Before Daniel could respond, a low rumble echoed outside. "Engines, multiple." His blood froze. "They found us." The sisters stiffened. Sophia snapped the laptop shut, shoving it into the steel case. "We don't have much time." Claire checked her pistol, her face set in grim resolve. "If they breach, we fight to the end." Daniel stepped between them, his voice firm. "No, you two fight to survive. I'll hold them." Sophia shook her head fiercely. "Daniel." But he cut her off, his voice breaking with raw truth. "I've got 2 daughters at home who think their father's strong enough to face the world. If I run now, if I let this filth swallow us, then I prove them wrong. I won't do that." For the first time, Sophia's calm exterior faltered. Her eyes softened. "You're not alone in this. Not anymore." The engines roared closer. Headlights swept across the warehouse walls. Doors slammed, voices barked orders. They were surrounded. Daniel gripped the rifle tighter, his knuckles white. Memories of battlefield surge, sand, smoke. Blood, brothers lost. He had promised himself he'd never stand in a war zone again. But here he was, in the heart of his own city, standing against enemies who wore badges instead of uniforms. The first explosion hit the door, shaking the walls. Shouts followed. They were coming in fast. "Positions!" Daniel barked, the soldier in him taking full control. Claire crouched by the window. Pistol steady. Sophia positioned herself by the door, case strapped to her back. Daniel stood in the center, rifle raised, every muscle braced. The door burst open in a shower of sparks. The night flooded in, armed men, their faces hard, their weapons hungry. Gunfire erupted. Daniel's rifle roared, cutting down the first wave. Claire's shots were sharp, each one finding its mark. Sophia moved with precision, laying down cover fire, her focus unwavering even as chaos swallowed the room. Bullets ripped through crates, wood splintered, sparks flew. Daniel felt a searing pain graze his shoulder, but he pushed through it, firing back with unyielding fury. His daughters' faces filled his mind. Smiling, innocent, worth every drop of blood he shed here. The attackers pressed harder, shouting relentless. Scarface was among them, wounded but alive, his rage fueling him. "Eat them!" he screamed. Daniel's clip emptied. He swung the rifle like a club, cracking it across an attacker's jaw. Another lunged, and Daniel drove his elbow into the man's throat, dropping him. Sophia shouted, "We can't hold them." Daniel's eyes burned with defiance. "Then we don't hold, we break through." He spotted an opening, a side door partially blocked by crates. "Go. Take the files and go." Claire hesitated. "Not without you." Daniel roared, his voice carrying the weight of a father, a soldier, a man with nothing left to lose. "G.O.?" Sophia grabbed her sister's arm, dragging her toward the door. They fought their way through, bullets sparking around them, until they disappeared into the night with the evidence. Daniel turned back, planting himself like a wall. He fought with everything left inside him, his body screaming in pain, his spirit unbreakable. For every step the attackers gained, he took it back with fists, fire, and fury. At last, Scarface raised his pistol, aiming squarely at Daniel. "This ends now." Daniel's chest heaved, his vision blurring, but his eyes burned with a fire no bullet could extinguish. "You're right," he rasped. "It does." A shot cracked through the air. But it wasn't Scarface's. From the shadows outside, a sniper's round ripped through the night, striking Scarface square in the chest. He dropped instantly. Chaos erupted among his men as more suppressed shots followed. Precision, accuracy, reinforcements. FBI units stormed in shouting commands. The remaining attackers scattered, overwhelmed. Daniel collapsed against a crate, blood seeping through his shirt, vision fading. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Sophia and Claire rushing back inside. Their faces etched with something he hadn't expected: fear. Fear of losing him. When Daniel opened his eyes again, it was to the sterile white of a hospital room. Bandages wrapped his shoulder, machines beeped steadily. He blinked, disoriented, until two familiar faces came into focus. Sophia sat by his bed, relief softening her sharp features. Claire stood at the window, arms crossed. But her eyes betrayed the storm inside her. "You made it," Sophia whispered. Daniel's throat was dry, but his voice rasped with wary humor. "Guess I'm tougher than I look." The Claire turned, her voice steady but softer than before. "You saved us. You saved the case." Daniel exhaled slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on him. "I just did what I had to do." Sophia leaned closer, her voice filled with something unspoken. "And because of you, Daniel, the truth will come out. The city will know. You changed everything." Daniel closed his eyes, his daughters' faces returning to him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not because the war was over, but because he had found something worth fighting for again. The battle had scarred him. But it had also given him purpose. And as the city stirred outside, unaware of the storm that had passed, Daniel Hayes, single father, soldier, protector, had become part of something far greater than himself. He had chosen to stand. And in doing so, he had proven that one man's courage could ignite a fire no darkness could extinguish.